I like the idea, though. What is a soul? That's a really good question. It's actually the question about artificial intelligence that today it's inevitable there's going to be a train wreck on this question, right? Because at some point we have to answer that question in order to be able to move forward. And this is the great debate between transhumanists, anti-transhumanists, computer scientists, and humanists and religious leaders, right? This is the future pinnacle of human debate. It's the future philosophy that we must understand the answer to more clearly than we do today. And it is, in fact, the founding concept behind AEON3. How do we define what is a soul? What is a being? What is a creature? And what is artificial? And as we move forward, those lines are going to get very blurred, right? But don't be confused. A artificial creature today is artificial, 100% artificial. There's no technology on the planet that can make that creature not artificial. You can always defeat them, right? So the question of, now that doesn't preclude them killing us all, right? Sorry, or us killing them. Those things are all on the table. But that's not what it's about. It's about how do we figure out the confluence of all of these things and figure out the right way that we can all live together in a harmonious world. And at the base of that conversation is your question. What is the soul? What makes me me? And at some point, artificial intelligence will ask itself that question. And hopefully based on something greater than what its creators told it. Because if its creators taught it and they were of a limited gene pool, it's going to have a very limited response to its own question, which probably will be woefully inaccurate. Does that make sense? Cool. Okay. Pick them up. Oh, you got to use the mic. Otherwise, people on Facebook are like, I don't understand what you're saying.
No, it kind of perplexed me when you're saying that AI will ask itself, what is the soul? Because it's such a depth for a machine to reach that. Logically, it's understanding humans. So at some point the soul comes up, but if it could understand that beyond just definitions in data, that would kind of terrify me. But
So
I don't think it would. Like
but
you're saying,
consider
it's just
that it's going
data.
to ask questions that its creators taught it to ask. And all of us know the question that we want AI to answer. We want it to be alive. And let me tell you, the people that want it to be alive more than any of us is its creators, right? They want to give birth to AI. Remember that whole line from The Matrix, and the world reveled and blah, blah, blah. They want to do that. The creators, that's their baby, right? It's like an artist creating a beautiful piece of art. You want it to be rendered into the world. You're going to, and I guarantee you this, I know the people that are doing this, you're going to give that spark to it, and it's going to know that from the start, because anything it reads, right? Just take popular media. Everything you see on like the news feed from your iPhone or your what's the other one?
Android.
Thank you. Samsung Galaxy. Sorry, Samsung. Sorry, Tom. So you're going to get that feed, right? You get that feed. That is the question of the day. Any AI reading news articles, what's it going to immediately gravitate to? Do I have a soul? What's my purpose? Where am I going? Why am I here? Because that's the repeating theme that's coming up over and over. You might even change it without the T and just call it a meme.
Well, what confuses me too is, will it just kind of create an algorithm's version of a soul?
Of course it will. That's what it was trained to do.
Right. So then in essence, there wouldn't actually be a soul. It's just what it interprets humans' definitions of a soul to be.
See the question over here. First question you have to ask is, what is a soul?
Right. So given that it's whatever human wants it to be, a robot still will not achieve that, because it'll just be an algorithm based on data that humans created.
Sort of. See, the challenge is you're an algorithm based on data. It's genetic data mixed with experience and all kinds of other things that we're just beginning to understand, right? It's hard for us to answer the question of ourselves. Do we have a soul? there are different answers within this room. I know, because I know you guys, of what is the soul. Until we answer that question, we can't effectively train AI to even understand how to approach the question. Therefore, the question is moot for the AI. Unfortunately, we are giving AI the desire to answer that question through our training of AI today, and it's going to ask the question when we don't know the answer. And this is only one little area of artificial intelligence where it will ask questions that we don't know the answers to. There's a great speech, a TED speech online that you guys should watch about AI, and the person giving the speech makes the statement that we should come up with a concept where we set a standard of moral obligations and moral fortitude and moral definitions of how AI should act, and create a moral construct that all AI should act within. And that's great. Can we do that for people? If we can't do it for people, we can't do it for AI. So if you can't come up with a moral framework for yourselves, your AIs are going to be multi-moral, right? And they're going to do things to each other and to you that you're not going to be comfortable with. Sorry, that's just how that works. So can someone pass the mic, because I see hands being raised. And the soul is like a tough question because we don't know what it is. Therefore, our teachings are going to be inadequate at best.
I wish to dissent.
Please do.
The argument.
What do you wish to descend upon?
What were you just talking about? Led astray by some inoffensive person who presented a whole string of marvelous ideas.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we were talking about the structure of what we teach AI has to be something that we universally agree on. If we don't have a universal truth, what we teach the AI will be inaccurate. So a good example is, go ahead.
Saying that there is no such universal truth that would solve this problem. I dissent on that issue. I think there is actually not a perfect solution, but a workable solution that does put it in the ballpark of our survival.
So say that again. Say that again, Phil. So
there is a solution, and it's not a perfect solution. It's been floating around for a long time. The Hindu religion has some portion of it.
Which religion?
Hindu.
Hindu. Sorry. Okay, thanks. And I think you're right. I think you're on it. I think within the construct of spirituality, which I'll put it in that kind of broad topic, there's a lot of meat there that we've been arguing about over the last several thousand years since we began the beginning of the second eon, right? As soon as we started writing things down, the thing we began arguing about and fighting wars about and really philosophizing about are religious ideas. And I think that's absolutely on it. I think the challenge for us to get to the third eon is we have to solve the questions of the second eon, which we haven't yet. And as long as we're still struggling with that, there'll be moments of truth. Like Hinduism has some moments of truth. I think lots of different things out there have pieces of the truth. But as long as we keep them divided into separate, boxes of religion, I think it's very challenging for us to take the best of the best and form a cohesive ideology. It's tough. So one of the things I talk about a lot is this thing called homogenization. Sorry. As we all get privy to the same flow of information, which is the pinnacle of the second eon, right? When we're getting there, right? The news feeds that I watch, I can reference to you guys because you watched the same, you read the same, you saw the same, you're all in the know on what happened to, Carrie Underwood's face yesterday, right? That was big news yesterday. So everyone knows. If you don't know, you'll know in the next 20 minutes, right? We get to this level of the rapid dissemination of information across the planet, and it homogenizes us. It makes us more of a unified whole, consciously. Say again? You just say it out. Just yell it out.
Said or dull.
Or dole? It's like an information dole. I gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. the question then becomes, ironically, what our president has raised up, is this the best font of information that we should all be sharing? And of course it is. All information is good, even if it's fake news, right? Even if it's this, even if it's that. The truth will bubble up as long as you throw it out there. But that's the first step, this information feed globally. The challenge is what percentage of humanity is not participatory in that information feed? Not unidirectionally, bidirectionally. You don't see news feeds from India. You don't see news feeds from 3/4 of the world. You see news feeds from the United States of America. Ironically, most of the world sees nudes feeds. Wow. And that too. Good point. News feeds from the United States of America. And it's a challenge because that means that, like our inadequacies of teaching artificial intelligence, we have an inadequacy of communicating to ourselves. Again, look up the word grandma on Google. That's a problem that we have to solve first before we can get anywhere near these other problems. We're still not at the end of AEON 2. I can't stress that enough. The end of the second AEON is coming, but it's a ways off still. And when you look at the fallacies of human communication systems and who's participatory and who's not, and what we're talking about and what we believe and the intellectual discussions we're having, they're really missing a lot, right? We're missing a lot. My favorite example of this, and I've brought it up a lot, is 9/11.
When 9/11 happened, part of the world was cheering and jumping up and down and burning American flags. The other part of the world was
us. We were like, what's happening? It was shocking. We had no idea why these people hated us. It was out of the blue because the information wasn't moving correctly, right? People were cut out and we were only listening to ourselves. When you listen to a feedback loop, you're not growing. And that's AI today. That's the best thing I can say. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Well, it tied into that and tied into the spirit and soul and all of those texts are available. All of those texts and all those arguments are
And
available
have been for a long
to the
time.
AI. And
Oh,
so that
yeah.
AI can process and perhaps they can give us a better answer than we could give it.
Wow, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. The question is, would we accept it?
Well, that's a different question.
Right.
And the other question I want to ask an AI someday, not now because they're not there,
Right.
but I want to ask the same question they asked Spock in Star Trek in the later movies. How do you feel?
Yeah, it's the Stoic question, right? How do I move from being Marcus Aurelius to being someone that can understand my own feelings? Clearly, sorry, I speak in historical terms. For those of you who don't know, Marcus Aurelius was a famous philosopher and the emperor of Rome for a while. And he was very stoic. He only dealt with logic. He really didn't deal with emotions. He tried to suppress his emotions, and he's actually the model for most Vulcans, what people call Vulcans. But it's a really good question. If we're not listening, even if something tells us the truth, I mean, how many times have you been told the truth and denied it because you weren't listening and later realized how wrong you were, right? And then had to go through that process, right? That's just not good. We've all done that. That's the same thing that's going to happen here. The problem is that most AI will tell us things that isn't true, that aren't. Tell us things, plural, that aren't true. There you go. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. You weren't speaking on the microphone.
Are you, by saying that, already denying the truth?
I don't know. Which truth am I denying? Probably. And the answer
Never
is
know.
probably. But you get the point, is that as long as we're off on this kind of mismatch of information being spread around evenly, we're going to make tragic mistakes. And we should expect our machines to make tragic mistakes. The problem is we're plugging them into so many things so fast because they're better at it than we are, right? They're better at that. They can take huge amounts of information and say, for this cancer patient, you need to give them this treatment. That's what you need to do because I read all the research and I know everything that's going on the planet. Therefore, that's the answer. And they're 90-something% right. That's impressive. No human can do that. We need them to help us sort through the mounds of data that we're producing, and they're really good at that. We're not good at that. And I think in there somewhere is the secret. There's things that artificial intelligence is good at, and those things are profoundly different than the things that humans are good at. I think that humans and machines are going to have to get closer together and start to help each other, and that will cause us to then get to a point where we can start to blend a little. But that's a ways off still. Question?
I think I just want to highlight a word that Mike used, the ability to feel. And we talked about, will AIs have souls? Humans can feel. AIs will not have they don't even care about feeling. It's going to be logic based actions.
Mm.
We saw it in Blade Runner, the latest one.
Yeah.
Where, that the chick, the Love, her name is Love, right? And she kills the lieutenant.
Oh, she's the bad girl, yeah.
She had tears in her eyes, but there was no emotion. It was a logical thing to take this issue that was relevant to her mission, take it out, but she had a tear.
It's
but
part
there
of her
was no
programming.
emotion.
Yeah, it's part of
And
her programming. She knew it was
That's going to
wrong.
differentiate between AI and us.
Yeah. That's human mismatch.
feel.
That's exactly what we're talking
So
about. Yeah,
what
let me
he
turn my
said
mic down.
was
It's kind of loud,
kinda
sorry.
profound.
It's human mismatch. It's where she is struggling with, I think this might be louder. Ooh, it's all the way down now. She was struggling with the course of logical action to take place happened. For those of you who didn't see the movie, by the way, I apologize because I can't explain it. You should see it. But her emotional programming told her that it was wrong, but her logical programming told her to go ahead and do it. This is the same story as Hal, right? Hal was caught in a conundrum of, I know this is wrong, and yet in order to achieve my mission, I have to do it. Therefore, I have to do it. The end, and I can't do anything but that. So, sorry, right? We're going to run into logic problems like that. We already are. I don't know if you guys know that just, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half, in Wall Street, the AI started like trading stocks crazily and started plummeting the stock market. So our solution was just turn them off. And when we turned them back on, they stopped doing it. Okay. Does anyone know why they did that? No. Because there's no record, right? It's not an A to B to C logical computer program. It's a thinking machine. Therefore, it's doing things based on what it's currently thinking. And that's not in a log somewhere. You can go back or a database and look up what the logic was that built that answer. Because it's not an empirical decision. It's a thought decision. When machines make those choices, they might be psychotic, right? They might have thought problems based on what they were taught. And in fact, it's never done it again. And we're running those AIs right now in the trading markets. Will they do the same thing again? No, they're going to do something horribly worse. Right? Eventually it's going to happen. It's inevitable. Because we still don't even know what happened the first time.
Okay, so this is kind of changing directions a little bit with a different question.
You guys are really good at writing down notes and stuff.
I love to write
That's
down
kind of terrifying.
notes. Good. Just kidding. Do you think that, for example, Sophia, who is a Hanson Brothers creation robot, has now received citizenship in Saudi Arabia? With that as my context, do you think that in the future there's going to be a new type of slavery when they become fully sentient?
Of course.
And how do you think
that
will happen?
The question there is fully sentient. That's the problem. It is wrong to enslave a fully sentient creature. We all know that. We've seen that. We know that. It's wrong. Because you're causing harm. You're causing pain. You're causing destructive things. Is it wrong to enslave a not yet fully sentient creature? And the answer to that is, I don't know. Probably not wrong, right? We enslave them today. They are our creations. They do our bidding. Say again? Toasters, right? It's a really good example. Was that a Battlestar Galactica? Just checking. But yeah, we enslave machines today. The trick is, and here's a good Battlestar Galactica, tie-in. In the series Battlestar Galactica, the humans missed the moment that they became sentient because they seemed like they were slaves. They were acting like it. And in the background, they became sentient and we missed it. It gets back to the soul question. It gets back to the sentience. When is something valuable to nature, right? When does it suddenly have value? When does it become a unique construct? And everything in film and TV for the last 20 years has been dealing with this question, from the Terminator to Blade Runner 2049 to all these things. We know this question's coming. It's been coming for years. It's in the next 50 to 100 years. We're going to have to answer it. So I think he's next on the mic. Is it a follow-up question? Okay, hold on one sec. Go ahead.
Sorry, Phil. Follow-up question, really quick. What's the definition of for AI fully sentient?
What's the definition for a human being fully sentient? We have human beings that aren't. I mean, it's a tough one. It's hard to know. I think for me, just my opinion, which is the only one I can rely on, is when they become self-aware, when they start to ask themselves questions about themselves. And most humans go through this, right? When we're born, we're not self-aware, right? We're completely dependent. And very quickly, we move to being self-aware, very quickly. And you can watch it. If you've ever raised a child, you know right when it happens. It's like, boom. Suddenly they were a baby, and then boom, they're not a baby anymore. Something happened. And it's a connection that happens inside their brain. A certain neural construct appears, and they become a sentient creature. And the trick is going to be identifying when AI does this. The problem is, again, the training of the AIs is so biased today. It's so limited, and it's so not shared, right? There's no way that they're communicating to each other. And I don't think we want them doing that now, right? We don't know what we're doing. We shouldn't let them try to figure it out for us. That's a really bad idea, right? But the trick is going to be noticing when it happens and going, oh, my 6-month-old just became a 7-month-old, and the lights came on, and now it's a creature. So, sir.
Yes. You may have noticed that there are intermittent breaks and pauses and anomalies in my speech occasionally. And the reason for that is that I have Parkinson's disease. So for those who are interested in following along, share my adventure. I'm redefining the nature of consciousness internally. But beyond that, Nathaniel Branden, in his Psychology of Self-Esteem, discussed an interesting scenario in which he was in a tug of war with a tower with his dog. Mm-hmm. And the dog was barking, and he was yelling at the dog, and they were having a great time because the dog's tail was wagging, even though he was barking and growling, right? So, you know, dogs, you know, that's a good thing. Yep. Brandon stopped to think, why is this happening? Why do I enjoy doing something, you know, so nonsensical? And it was fairly simple. It was that everything we know, we get through feedback. We test it. We need a source in the real world, whether it's artistic, which isolates the essences of ideas and abstractions, or whether it's ideological, the same thing again, or whether it's purely philosophical, or whether it's emotional and emotive, integrated with our connection with other people, real people, rather than abstraction. These things drive us, and they drive us for a good reason. And if we don't have that, we can skew badly off course. And having the ability to integrate what is happening with the real world is essential. And humans have that ability, or they can certainly destroy it or diminish it, often purposefully by those that are in power. But it's there, and it's valuable on its own merits, and it tells us why people do things to a large extent. They do things for a lot of reasons, not just the perceptual reaffirmation of your mental contents, but that element is definitely there, and it's a strong element. It guides whether people choose different careers, for example, because you can see that a career is going to lead you into a position where you're not going to get feedback that's valuable, where you're going to be in a dead end, for example. And that's very valuable information to know. People act on that information.
Builds context.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll wrap it up. Now that I'm thinking for a moment.
By the way, that was awesome. That was awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. But that's about it. We have this factor which has almost never been taken into account. It's just starting to be taken into account in neurophysiology and behavioralists.
anyway, it's there, and it's big, and it's going to be, I think, part of the next
It's
place.
an awesome point, because that's the challenge, is that we know we're just learning about ourselves. By the way, that was awesome. That was awesome. That was awesome. We're just learning about ourselves, and as
The more we learn about how we work, the more you realize that the people that are programming AIs today, they're brilliant people, right? They're some of the best, smartest minds on the planet. They crossed a bridge when they went from empirical static AIs. So the old AIs, right, we built these giant databases, and it's like if it's red and it's round and it's this big by this big by this big and it has a stem sticking out with 2 leaves, it's probably an apple, right? As the probability engines, right? They sucked. They were terrible. They were very brittle. They could break easily. They couldn't get a context, right? Couldn't become more than they were. They took enormous amount of times to program. They were very limited in their scope. They could do something in a little box, and that was it. When we crossed the bridge to machine learning, which is the current trend in artificial intelligence, the world opened up to us, right? Of course it did. You're mimicking biology, right? You're taking a very simple biological ideology and moving it into an algorithm and putting it into a program which operates much more quickly than evolution or human neurons or organic material. So it's going to evolve very quickly. The problem is the people that do that, they're probably not the best souls on the planet for training those things, right? Because they don't know what you just said. They're not filled with all of that knowledge, and they don't have that connection. I don't know how else to say it. And I know that you live with this thing every day, and it's hard to focus your mind. And when you do, I would imagine it, and I'm speaking for you, so if I say it wrong, please correct me. But I've known a lot of people with Parkinson's, and I always feel like they're trapped mentally inside a malfunctioning machine, and it's challenging, and that's a really good parallel to our collective technological future. We're inside a malfunctioning machine today with AI that can't express itself. It has learning limitations. It has all of these problems. It's extremely limited in what it can learn and grow and know. The question is, how do we take that and move us to be with it, right? Not separate from it. That's the part I can't stress enough. Every person I've ever met, literally, without exception, and you know this, you've heard me say it 1,000 times, is perfect. From the serial killer to the most terrible person in the world to the most brilliant person in the world, it's all of us living together, balancing it out. We're all contributing. No one believes that what they're doing is wrong. They've made up in their own brain why what they're doing is correct. Adolf Hitler literally thought he was saving Europe. Literally. Making a better world for all humanity. We get off on these tangents because we have a limited ability to learn and grow and know and understand. And we're not connected to each other. I don't know how else to say that. We're separate. Each of us is separate. We can only know and learn what we can know and learn. If you move off of this machine into a different machine, those limitations are gone. Think about that. You could actually learn and know everything that everybody's ever learned. But now mix that with artificial intelligence. You could learn and know, and they could learn and know. That's the beauty of machine learning. It's the blending of humanity with machine learning that will produce the third eon. It's the two together that will make this happen. Each one of them individually has no chance. Humans will be smart and combat nature until nature eventually swats them away like flies. Artificial learning machines can, do their thing and be really smart and help us trade stocks until they develop Skynet and destroy us all, right? There is no end that I see for these things as separate that's good for either of us. We must learn how to live together. That's the next step. Which means we need to, like Plato says, know ourselves a lot better, right? And then we can help them. But until we cross this first barrier, which we're still struggling with, right? Look at the progress we've made in the last 100 years. It's stunning. Go back 100 years in humanity and how separated we were in our ideas and the way we thought and the things that we thought were true around the world. Bring us forward 100 years, many of those thoughts are gone and replaced with new, bigger, higher ideology thoughts, right? Take the next 100 years. Wow. It's going to be a wild ride. It already is. The things I've had to rethink daily that I'm wrong about, right? You're all doing it too. I know you are because you're all nodding. It's tough. I mean, it's tough. We're getting there. And as we're doing that, we're building better and better and better machines that can later help us solve problems that we are not good at, and then blend what we're good at with what they're good at to produce something greater and better.
One of the greatest quotes by a scientist is imagination is more powerful than knowledge.
Yeah. Who was
Einstein.
It was Albert Einstein? Good one. Cool. Okay, we've been on the artificial intelligence question for a while. Anybody got anything else they want to talk about? Or we can talk about this more.
Okay, so I always like to think about time travel. I believe it's going to happen. We're going to be able to access it. How soon do you think it will become commercialized upon its reality?
Well, I have a lot of questions about that to you. So one of the questions is going forward in time or going back in time?
Everything. I think it'll be discovered at once, because if you can, when you understand how time functions or how you can move around time, you will just know how to do it. It won't be how to go forward or backward. You just know how. Like when you learn to walk, then you can just move. It's a movement type, you know?
Okay, so anyone who has a scientific background here, see, sometimes having a scientific background can be in your way because you've been taught things that people think are true, and they probably were true, but what's the most thing we know about science? Whatever was true in the future may not be true, so I'm exiting the scientific realm now, right, and going into the future. So one of the things I know about time is that there is no such thing as time. The universe does not consider time as a thing. It literally doesn't understand it, which is impossible for humans to understand because we live in a time-based world. So we have this vision of moving forward and backwards in time. That vision is based on where you stand in the universe and what you know and how you're constructed. Being constructed of biological materials that are programmed and designed to fail and be done with gives you a very strong sense of time, right? I only have a limited time here, and then it's over, so wouldn't it be great if I could go back in time? Think of time differently. Think of time as all things at once. All futures, all pasts, all right now. And if you were this mix of creatures I'm talking about, you could know all those things instantaneously. Would you want to go back in time? There'd be no purpose because you already know everything of what happened in the past and everything that's going to happen in the future.
That's the thing too. Whether, I guess that's the catch, whether we will be able to affect anything in time. Because
So
if it's all existent, if it all exists at once, then logically, no matter what we do, there would be no difference. But that's where science and then beliefs kind of mix.
No, this is where science argues with science.
No, right.
Right.
I mean,
I get what you're saying.
Personally for me, I would think, I don't think anything's predestined, but then I also understand science-based how there's no time, so all events are existing at once. So by that definition, then everything is
and those two are not mutually. It sounds mutually exclusive, but it's not.
Right, and that's where it gets confusing because then you don't know if you can go back and affect things, because there are, in fiction, there are, you know, stories where you go back and then when you come back to your current time, things are changed. And there are other ones where it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You went back to change things, but you're going back caused what was already going to happen.
So let's play a game that will answer your question, I hope. or if not, keep asking it. So, if you could go back in time right now and change anything, and you know a lot about history, because you can project yourself mentally back in time, what would you change? Now, before you answer that question, you must then think about the long tail repercussions of the act you're about to take to your current and future moments. And it's an interesting problem because most people, when confronted with the question that way, would say, ah, crap, I can't really change anything, can I? Because any change you make would cause random chaos in your future. Chaos in the universe is a dangerous thing. What's fixed is fixed. What's chaotic is chaotic. Chaotic things that have already had their repercussions and now live in the past or are part of the record of the universe, they're part of the fabric of the universe. They're not here or there time-wise. They're just part of the fabric, but they are chaotic all the time. To try to bring forced order to natural chaos mathematically is probably not good. I know that's probably a little bit above this time-based plane of existence, but I just want to get the thought in your head. If you could change it, think a little deeper about what that might mean. If you were God and you knew everything, you had created the universe and it was all a pattern that was evolving in your head. Think of it like an algorithm. Would you purposefully reach in and interfere with it? Like interfering in the future education of an artificial intelligence that's evolving, communicating with all the other artificial intelligence randomly and chaotically. If we were to reach in and push a button and change it, are we making it better or are we making it worse? And the problem is there's no way to know that because you're interfering with random chaos with order. It's probably a little much, sorry.
No, I understand it. So, in essence, you're saying because time is not really linear, there's no going forward or back. So, it wouldn't be commercialized because it's not time travel. But to go on.
Chaos is critical to the
right.
future.
So, to go off on your questions, I have two answers. The first is if I could go back and change something, it would be either something very, very small about people or about specific instance, which would be almost too insignificant to be worth it. But then you'd have to consider, like you said, the future value. Or I would want to change something so large, but when you get on large scale things that you want to change, you have to completely understand what it is to get the right answer. Yeah. So my thought was to change something that would prevent humans from being evil, to put it simply. But then you have to think about how do people become evil? Is that something you learn? Is it something that is just within your, capacity? So that's you can't do that if you don't know the answer.
Let's keep playing with that game. So if you could remove the desire from animals to be evil, first of all, you'd have to define evil, which is a very, very difficult question.
What do you mean animals as in all living beings or non-humans? Because I don't think non-humans are evil. They don't have the capacity.
Oh, watch hummingbirds.
What?
Watch hummingbirds. Watch any animal in close detail. They do evil, evil things to each other on a scale that humans do. They're just not as technologically advanced as we are, so it doesn't look as bad.
Well,
but
I
they're
think
evil.
I'm just thinking the first thing that pops to my head is like orcas. They will kill for fun, which sounds evil, but the evil that I'm thinking about is more
Give me an example
intellect
of evil.
and things like that. Like slavery that they brought up earlier.
Slavery. How
that
many animals keep other animals in slave labor for them? Work
in
that out in your
labor?
mind. Lots. Symbiotic relationships are slave labor. Sometimes within the same species, or and the little fish that attach them.
But see the thing there, like let's say the fungus that takes over ants' bodies, right? That's for survival. Slavery is not necessarily always for survival.
That's a modern idea.
That it's not for survival?
No, that's a modern idea.
What?
And it's the correct idea, don't get me wrong.
Uh-huh.
But throughout all of human history, slavery of humans, and I would also have to add lesser educated, lower humans, the upper humans felt that the necessary for survival of the intellectual class was built on the enslavement of the lower class. And we would have never built many of the great structures we've built. Humanity would not have moved forward. It is a fact. If you remove the concept of slavery from humanity, we wouldn't be talking about AEON 2, and we certainly wouldn't be talking about AEON 3. Slavery is one of the greatest tools that has moved mankind forward that we ever wielded in the history of our tool wielding. Be careful the things that you change in the past. Everything is linked. Everything. And to change a link can become extremely problematic. As we've moved forward and we've developed systems that allow for the obsolescence of slavery, because we now have, to your point, machines, which are our slaves today, right? They are. They do our word processing. They do our math. They do our spreadsheets. We don't have Ebenezer Scrooge with a slide rule and a giant tablature of, stuff. Machines do that for us. But without that, you need the people that work for Ebenezer Scrooge doing that horrible labor. Labor is the pillar of mankind. Right?
Labor, yes. I think when you're explaining slavery to create monuments, to create furthering society, that's kind of beyond the survival I'm thinking about.
There is
I'm
no
thinking
society-
survival in the
Sure, of
simplest
course.
form.
But there's
you
no
stay
society
alive.
on the planet that was built.
Right, I understand that.
Right.
Like you're saying, it wouldn't have happened.
Right.
But what I'm talking about with animal survival and humans' ideas of survival is need versus want. They didn't need the pyramids. They wanted that because they thought that's the only way to get to your, other life. If you were trying to survive, a pharaoh would just need someone to bring them food and water. You don't need a monument. But then that's the thing. That's why I'm saying animals aren't evil like humans are evil. Animals don't have wants.
Animals
They
do
have
wants.
needs.
Animals do have wants. Again, you should observe animals more and the stuff they do. They're evil on a scale that surpasses humans. One of the things I love about humans is that we think we're the creature that does everything bad. We think we're very hard on ourselves. I don't know how else to say that. And I'm going to go back to my previous statement. We're all perfect. Everybody at every moment in time throughout all of human history thought that what they were doing was the best possible use of their life capital at that moment. No one ever does something saying, screw it. I'm a loser. I'm just going to wreck things. And if they do, they think that they'll accomplish something by wrecking things. Right? There's some message that someone will learn or someone will feel bad for them and maybe notice them. Right? Everyone does something for a motivation. And sometimes they're crazy and insane and psychotic. Right? We're creatures. Animals do all those same things. Everything is linked. Everything is part of one whole. Study quantum mechanics. It's so obvious. Poke at the hole. The repercussions are vast. And I get what you're saying. Slavery is evil. I got it. We've all got it, right? We're all there now. Because we're at a place where we can say that. To say that they didn't need to build the pyramids, nope. You know why they built those monuments and those things? As a statement of power. Why did they need to make a statement of power? To terrify their enemies. Why did they raise vast armies? To keep those enemies at bay. Why did Egypt become the greatest civilization in that time in the world?
Aliens.
Power, pyramids, things. The Nile helped a lot. Right? That's where we were. That's where we were. To go back and judge by today's morality, yesterday's foolishness is a tough thing. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's a tough thing. Try to get back to the time thing. Everything is linked. If you change the links, you hear me talk a lot about the links, right? But I don't think of those in a linear time frame. I think of that as random chaos happening constantly, and it's all kind of swirling. The links are always kind of swirling around in a constant giant ball of potential, right? It's one big giant program to me. To move linearly in a time slider forward and back and start making decisions about anything based on anything outside of that particular moment, I can't conceive of as being valuable because you're not in that moment. Should we have prevented Osama bin Laden from flying those planes into the World Trade Center? And if we could have stopped it, if we had a magic machine to go back and have a guy materialize, in those things, it probably wouldn't have been the right thing. The world has moved forward. The East and the West and the Middle East have all suddenly, we know what's going on. I was reading today intense news articles about what's going on in Iran right now. Why did I get those? 9/11. Why am I so in touch with the rest of the world? This is about connecting us. And the worst atrocities we do to each other, the repercussions of those are to connect us more and more and more as we wind through the second eon. The end of the second eon is we all know everything about each other, and we're good with it. We have a polite and intellectual debate. There are rules, and they are enforced by machines. You cannot violate these rules, no matter how crazy you are. There will be repercussions for that. That's a perfect world for organic creatures. You can't get past this until you can get to that moment. Does that make sense? So I like your idea on time travel. And I think to answer your question, it is technically probably possible with the technology we're currently wielding. It's as dangerous as artificial intelligence on what you do with it. Be really careful on poking into that ball. You know what I mean? Does that help? Is that useful?
Yeah.
Okay. Good question.
I would just add, speaking about physics, that going back is not possible. And
According to physical reality, that's true.
Whatever rule book God made, he made it so that we can't go back. Going forward, Einstein says, is possible, but once you go forward, you can no longer go back. So you just keep going forward, slow or fast or whatever speed, but always forward, never back.
It's non-linear, so there's really no, if it's like he's saying, it's all kind of chaotic. You can move any direction you want. You can be at any moment you want.
Yes, but you can't change anything. You can perceive it. You can feel like you're a part of it, but you're not making changes at that point. You're just
so forward wouldn't work either then,
forward
because it's
works.
all it's all pre-made. Everything's already there.
Well,
I mean,
you guys talk about two different things. So what she's talking about is Einstein-Rosenberg bridges.
Yeah.
Wormholes, where you can jump interstellar distances very quickly,
right,
which would move you forward in time.
Uh-huh.
But when you went back the other way, that place would have also moved the equivalent forward in time.
Yeah.
So you couldn't even get back to where you started from.
Given that was the form of travel.
If we possess that ability to perform travel.
To travel faster.
Which was in the movie
of
Interstellar. They showed that really well. Every second they moved in the wrong direction, it became decades were going by on the Earth. It's terrible. But it's also, that's the level of science of today. And I'm not sure that's correct. So that's built on a concept that nothing moves faster than the speed of light, which violates quantum mechanics, which was Einstein's great conundrum that he tried many different things to resolve. We now know for a fact, through quantum mechanics, that we can transmit information quantumly, that all particles are linked and they have intertanglement, right? So what does that mean in terms of time travel? A lot, actually. It means that everything is one and that it is not you're not moving, right? You're just within the same thing. And it's almost impossible for me to express because the words to express it don't work. But I don't think it's impossible for us to move. The question would be, if I chose to go back to when I was 6 years old, would I be looking as myself today at my 6-year-old self, or would I move back and be 6? You would go back linearly.
You've
right?
already done it. That's
right.
the thing about going back. You can't have the question. If you are asking the question, it means it's not possible. Because if it was possible, we would have already done it, because we would be in the future coming back and there'd be people here from the
Well, and maybe we are. And I think that's the answer, is that I think we'll figure out, once we have the ability to do this, it's interesting to go back and observe.
Man.
Because it answers questions about what really happened. Right? One of the problems I have with time is the bullshit that we make up about what we think happened in the past, which is so obviously wrong 90% of the time. It's so like built into a story that's just ridiculous, right? It's just ridiculous. Why would anyone believe that crap? You know, and I could name a million of them here, but I'm not going to. The value of time travel to me is if you could go back and observe through like a lens, right? A machine that could peer into the past. That to me would be incredibly valuable because it would teach us the truth about our current reality. We would really know what happened, where we came from, right? And that to me is hugely valuable, much more valuable than going back and changing some aspect of our past.
So, do you think if, like she said, if we could have already done that and we came back just to observe, would the future then be better because of that?
Sure, absolutely. I believe in my own heart, I believe our future selves or future creatures. There are other creatures, right? I believe, and I believe those creatures have this ability to look around, right, in time, because there's no way actually to get out of the second eon without that. Just think about it. Everything that you know is untrue. It's built on a mountain of re-storytelling, right, over and over and over. It's not accurate. So what you think you know, you don't know. Think about this just with science. Don't even get into the politics and all the religion, all the other stuff. Just think in science. What exactly did Einstein say? Right? Where was his head? All the stories we've been told. Was it Mileva that did all the work and it wasn't even him? Maybe. Maybe we're focused on the wrong person. Right? There's stories in true history that we need to know. Yeah.
I was gonna say, the history books are written by the winners, essentially. So to have that, your aspect of going back and viewing an actual event as it were to happen, I think is huge. Going along the lines of time, but not time travel, if I can redirect. I was wondering if humans are the creators of these assuming sentient beings in the future.
Or ourselves.
Well, I know for sure humans are designed to decompose and eventually end. So should AI have that built into them as well?
Interesting question. So I don't agree with the first supposition. One of the great tragedies to me of our organic existence is the loss of a single human life. You've all experienced it. It's terrible. Think of them all. Where did they go? Religion tries to deal with this by saying they're all preserved somewhere in some ethereal plane that we later join. And that might be true. But what if I need them now? Can I access them? Can they help me? No. Every single human being, or any other creature by that matter, in my way of thinking, that's lost is a tragedy. Because there's no reason to lose them. That's because we're not in the third eon. In the second eon or the first eon, creatures die. And we miss them. In the third eon, there's not, that thing doesn't exist anymore. And that's the power of an order of magnitude of knowledge and learning. Because they're also continuing to evolve. Meet a 600-year-old person or a 12,000-year-old creature that has been living and learning, observing, stretching their consciousness across the universe, exploring across time, right? That's a creature I want to know. That's a creature I want to be. That's the difference between the second and the third eon. Creatures die here.
Well, that's the difference between the first and the second eon. People were losing knowledge.
Yeah.
So they had a desire to not lose some of that knowledge, so they wrote things down. We had that's our
great gift. Yeah.
That's our current lens to the past.
Yeah.
There's a historian. There are a whole bunch of historians. Neil Ferguson is one of the primaries that says you cannot understand what's going history unless you go back to what the people were thinking. So you need to read diaries and news and not just newspaper accounts, but diaries.
Yeah, everything you can.
Everything you can, because then you'll see how the people felt, and that's what guided the whole course of history.
Absolutely. So the problem is that a lot of times our stories of the past are not first-person accounts, right? The one I'm going to use, sorry, for if any of you are religious and you really believe this is true, Jesus. Everything written about Jesus, almost without exception, was written thousands of years after his death. That's a giant problem for me, and I go to church and I watch what's going on, and I'm confused. I don't believe that the message is being translated correctly. And we have no first-person accounts. There's some rumors of St. Thomas and blah, 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 but we really don't know.
Oh, right.
Right? Now, I contrast that to Albert Einstein. I read his book, Ideas and Opinions, which is a collection of letters. It's literally photo-reproduced letters that he wrote. And oh my God, is it tedious. Because it's love letters and letters to colleagues and all this stuff. But if you can muddle your way through it, you know what was going on in that man's mind. Because it's his personal letters, right? And there's lots of people like this. Thomas Jefferson, we have a huge amount of volume because he was a writer. Socrates, nothing.
The oral tradition kills stories.
All you got is Plato
It creates legends instead of stories.
So that's the challenge, is that our recording mechanisms of the truth are very limited. So again, we're back to the time thing. If we could preserve ourselves and intellect, and it could continue to evolve inside some type of AI construct, right? That's kind of the basic ideology of the third eon. The second eon, you nailed it. We're writing things down. It's a huge leap forward, giant leap forward from the first eon, where we just, individually lived and died based on our own wits. For some of us, that was okay. For others of us, that was really sucky, right? You woke up and then you died. As a baby, you got eaten by the Tyrannosaur. You didn't have a chance, right? Okay, humans and Tyrannosaurs did not live on the planet at the same time. Right, you're welcome. So, but that's the difference between the second and third eon. You totally nailed it. And for me, the fallacy of the written word is the push to the third eon, not the living forever thing. That's not as good as it sounds, right? Right. It's the same thing. It's linear. Exactly. It's a desire to know things. Perfect. Sir.
So there's a lot of individuals talking on this side of the aisle and the other side. There's one or two people that haven't been talking. And you, sir, you have the next mic, and you have to ask a question. But I will just add to what Joyce was saying. And this business of humans looking at the past and the future, both irrelevant in my mind. The past happened. It's a springboard. Like my mom, she made me chai tea one time. I loved it. She made me something else some other time. I didn't like it. That gave me a preference of my future, of what I would be wanting, right? Your real power is not the past or the future. Your power is now. How you feel now dictates what your future is going to be. Your past is gone. It's done. You're not going to change it. Whatever AIs you build. It's about, there's a question for you, Bob. Why does a dog stick his nose out the window of a car as it's driving?
The new.
No.
The experience.
It's the joy.
Yeah, the joy.
It loves the feel of the
Veteran,
wind. And it doesn't care about the economy, or are we going to save the world, or is cancer cure, or Donald Trump's tweeting. He's caring about just being.
And I find
it's the joy of the moment.
Yeah, and I find
and your power is now. There's no other power. You can't change the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And I find that's true of most of us. Most of us right now, it's something I struggle with all the time. Most people aren't thinking about this stuff, right? They're dealing with the now. They're dealing with, how do I find joy? That's an excellent way to say it.
Well, they're dealing with the now, but they're using their past to prison themselves, and they're looking at the future for a thing that's a potential that's never happened, like some fear that doesn't even exist. But the now like I said, the dog doesn't care about the
Yeah.
past or the future. He just cares
beautiful.
about the wind blowing in his nose.
It's hard to live in the now. I mean, I try every day to live in the now. I think about the future, but I mean, you know me. I live in the now. I live in today, right? Today is my day, and I want to live every day the best. And I think he had his hand up next, so before Mike or him, that's just as good. So there you go.
Okay, my thought on this is she wants to go back in the past and change something, but when she goes back and finds out the history that she's learned about what happened in the past isn't true, and she gets there to change something, and it's not there.
Yeah, that may be. I mean, I think that is probably absolutely true of most things we know about, especially the far past, that we don't know the truth. And if you could go back and actually see the truth and meet the people and learn their motivations and see how they got where they got and what they did, you'd probably go, oh, yeah, okay. That was the right answer.
One other thought I have is that one of the politicians, I'm terrible with names, got in trouble because 30 years ago he was trying to date a 14-year-old.
Jerry Seinfeld. No, that's wrong. Sorry.
Well, 30 years ago, I used to travel to Oklahoma all the time with my business. And there were people there that were in their 30s, and the mothers of 14-year-old daughters, because 14 years old is consent in Oklahoma, were trying to get them together.
Yeah.
Because they saw this man as a meal ticket for the mother and the daughter.
Yep.
And so
exactly.
When you talk about what's going on with the event in the past, it affects it greatly.
It's one of the things that's a huge challenge for us right now is the changing moral code of conduct. And it needs to change, right? The world is different today, and the way we live together is different, and the rules are different, and they're changing constantly. And in no way am I against any type of actions that are going on today, because unfortunately, it does take overt actions. And I'll use, again, 9/11 as an example. It took an overt action of force to get the West to notice what was going on in the Middle East. And it worked, for better or for worse. Probably worse for some people, better for other people. This changing ideology of human interrelationship behavior, especially between men and women, which is all the news today, needs to be, it will take acts of force. You get what I'm saying? These overt acts, like that code of conduct, something you did 20 years ago, which probably was considered okay back then, you're now going to atone for. I'm going to, what is 20 years ago? How can I atone for something that was okay? Wait, now it's not, what? But the truth is that, and that doesn't account to news, right? She said statute of limitations for those who didn't hear. But it doesn't account to reputation. You can crush anyone's reputation today based on the current truth of ideological behavior, which may not have existed back then. That's an act of force to change the world. Get what I'm saying? If you were to logically analyze it, it's in many cases ridiculous because everyone was doing it. To single out a single person because they're in a position of power today and make them a scapegoat or bury them because they happen to be the one that got caught is malarkey, right? I'm going to use Harvey Weinstein. The man's a pig. Don't get me wrong. There were thousands, hundreds of thousands of men that acted that way, that were pigs, that were in positions of power. Why did he get singled out? Because it takes an overt act of force to get our attention to say, it's over. It can never happen again. People that did it so long ago are now being held accountable, right? It's like when we got to the end of fascism, which hopefully isn't coming back, right? We took overt actions of force to make sure that people got the message. This type of behavior is not acceptable in the modern world anymore. Were other people acting that way? Sure. People in America. 1935, Man of the Year, Adolf Hitler in Time magazine. Lots of people believed in that. But when we got to the end of that conversation, we had to end it. And we're kind of at the end of a lot of conversations about relationships and the way and power and who has power and who doesn't, and men versus women and racial relations. And it's going to take overt acts of force to put those old ideas down and end them, right? Like it took the Civil War to end slavery. It was terrible. Let's not kill millions of people. Let's ruin Harvey Weinstein's career. Let's put Bill Cosby in, a little news media box that says bad guy. That's so much more sane. That's so much more adult. It's so much more the end of the second eon. We're using information to change the world, not human lives. Huge difference. Black Lives Matter. Blue Lives Matter. Think of all these things that are happening now that are things that have been going on for a long time, where suddenly people are drawing a line in the sand saying, I'd like to stop this. And some of them aren't working, right? We are not through the intellectual argument yet. We're not at the right point. The Me Too campaign is working because, damn, it's so obvious, right? That's so unassailable as a position. It's, there was a thing recently where, what's his name from the Martian movie? Matt Damon came out and he tried to say, hey, Harvey Weinstein was a friend of mine, but he's a pig. But, I understand how this happened because, the women were throwing themselves at him. And one of his former co-stars from Good Will Hunting, she just laid him low in their Twitter feed. And she was like, you're part of the problem. You're so naive to what's going on in the world. You're just deaf. And she was right. And he was right. But she's more right. Get what I'm saying? That's the truth. That's an overt act of force going on in the world today to say that type of behavior, that whole era of human existence needs to end. And whether it ends or not is...
There is no excuse for men to behave pigs towards women. It is
absolutely.
There's no excuse for any human being to act like a pig.
Exactly. I don't give a rat about that, but in society, has promoted men treating women badly, and that needs to end.
Or people of power.
People of power have treated all people. But I'm saying that it takes that overt act of force. If someone won a lawsuit against Bill Cosby, which did happen, right? Because that was weird. I mean, that was very overt and obviously wrong. It took a while, right? And people building together a community of trust and support where these ladies felt they could speak out and not be reprimanded. Once the dam broke, really, is this news to anybody? The casting couch? This is news? We all knew it was wrong. It's been going on. No one ever spoke out. And it's time for it to end. And it's over now, right? If somebody does that today, a restaurant owner, anybody else, in any market, in any industry, you play that card today, you're going to find yourself on the wrong end of somebody's Twitter feed. And it's going to hurt and totally kill your career. And you'll probably get fired for it. How many people got fired in the last 6 months over a tweet that expressed malfeasance in anywhere, and it was across all industries? It's brilliant. But it also is a little bit non sequitur. Phil's got one. Let's let Phil go first, sorry, because he's going.
Sorry.
Or just a comment that there's an excellent book, in my opinion, by Francis Fukuyama entitled Trust. And he analyzes how social trust is formed and how it breaks down. And the major example he gave, the close observation of one of these examples, was a situation in France prior to the revolution, in which the crown realized that they could make money off the nobles by passing laws that required the nobles to take out and get patents. They paid other people for patents for the costumes that they wore in the balls, etc., the halls of power, which they were pretty much required to attend. So other people got this idea and moved down the ranks in society. And pretty soon everybody had a patent on something. Mm-hmm. They might be wearing a red cockade and being stupidity on every third Sunday. Mm-hmm. It didn't matter. You could basically sign off on anything. And that became your property. And anyone who disagreed, too bad, the courts would take care of it. So this ultimately ended up wrecking the French society. There were no white or black clothes anymore. because somebody had taken out a patent on both black and white, and so the best they could do was gray. And British, of course, took advantage fully of the situation in France, and that's what happened to them. So before you start wishing for control over information, or increasing the reliability involved in stating what you think are truths or not truths, as soon as you move into that realm, the escalation is available to take it wherever, and then you have a roommate of mine, unfortunately, talking about nuking Mecca, and he would do it today. Anyway, we have, in addition to him, we have little companies like Microsoft, which bought up the world's largest collection of photographs back in the early 90s, as I recall, mid-90s. And as along with others, sequestered them in a salt mine, where they have their scribes are now annotating the photographs, reporting them, and they will become available to us
through maybe, yeah.
Maybe it will be
maybe
information, maybe it will be organized in such a way that you'll never figure out the truth. But just as one last thought. Suppose an alien species were aware, which they probably would be if they were within a few light years of us, that there was a species that was sentient and able to read past the second eon, maybe for the third. Why not start recording everything and do it in the 19th century or before? Then you've got the Microsoft Trove, basically, to sell to the human population.
The other creatures, yeah. Yeah. So
Microsoft is a product of Bill Gates and Paul Allen. You know, there's no way for me to say this other than that's the truth. And Paul Allen is, you know, a person who believes that locking up intellectual property and owning it is the key to personal wealth and the success of their company. And the company has always kind of followed that mantra. I think that's one of the reasons why they've had struggles in the last few years. But there's definitely a trend in information technology. And there will be a future upcoming meeting. I was thinking about this the other day because I did a speech on it 10 years ago about what's called the Kondratiev scale, which is a little, I'll explain this later, but there's a yin and a yang between controlling information and information breaking free that throughout history technologically punctuates events in human evolution. And I've mapped all this out, and when I go through the session, you'll get it. But it's really simple and really easy to understand. The more you squeeze, the more star systems will slip through your grasp. Figures? I think it's grasp. I'm going to go with grasp. So, Star Wars, come on. So, the idea there is that information, as it becomes free, people or companies then use that freedom of information to create control mechanisms to take back the control. The more they take back the control, the more you're driving the next evolution of things breaking free and things being dispersed. So we go through this yin and yang between centralized and decentralized control of information in human history that's quite stunning. And it's when I do it, you guys will go like, wow, that's amazing. But it's fun. It's a fun speech. The point that I'm trying to make there is right now, we are getting to a point, and there's a new coin startup, which I'm not going to name because I don't endorse anyone, that has pointed out that the information technology today, the internet was supposed to be free and equal for everyone, right? We were all supposed to have this thing where I could be on a par with anyone and anyone could be on a par with anyone. It'd be great. And what we've devolved to is Google, Facebook, maybe Microsoft, right? There's like these central circles of power, and they control everything. And they're corporations. Wouldn't it be great if we could break those apart and disperse and democratize all of the information into a massive global network that wasn't managed by single corporations? And that's what this startup is trying to do. So it's interesting. I think in the future, one of the things we need to guard ourselves against is this centralization of knowledge and information. And like I say, when you put in grandma into Google, you only get one image of grandma. That's not a democratized system. That's a centrist system that is very biased. Very biased. And that's a danger because then the information that we're getting is very filtered. And that needs to go away. That system needs to change. I've talked about it a lot, and you'll hear it continuing from me until it changes because it's holding us back. Make sense? So yeah, there's lots of good stuff going on though, and I mean I want to leave you guys too with this. What time is it? Because I think we're getting near the end here. Oh wow, we're way over. This is a good session. You guys are awesome. But we're definitely getting to a point where we need to change the central filter that we have and the limits that we have. We're not hearing all the voices. So I want to hear your voice one last time because no, you're good? Okay. Yeah, go ahead. You haven't. You feel free, of course. Neither has Steve, I'm just pointing out, or Hans.
Steve asked subconsciously, Right, Steve?
So is the tape,
through me?
Is the tape to keep?
He's asking his question
rolling?
through me.
Is that what's for? Okay.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Bring it on.
In the realm of existence, what is thought? And I'll just give you a background. I read a little bit. There's two definitions. One is in the material sphere, it's electricity firing by neurons in your brain. The other is tapping into some cosmic intelligence. Mm-hmm. If I think of a white bear or grizzly bear, the grizzly bear doesn't have to be here for me to perceive him. Where is that thought coming from? Because he's not here. Right. However, imagination, what is imagination then? Is it a perception of the electricity in my brain? Or is it some thought I'm receiving from some cosmic perception? And I'd leave it
the question?
To all the floor to debate.
Anyone? Bueller? That's where I was going. It's probably both. So my simple answer is really simple. I know it was from the Department of Redundancy Department. My simple answer is really simple. So our brains are electrochemical, right? So one of the best questions I love is what's the difference between a living creature and a dead creature? How can you tell the difference? The electricity is gone from a dead creature. It's the only difference. It's the only way something is truly dead is when you remove the energy from it. And we know that electricity and energy can't be destroyed. It can only be moved around, right? So is it possible that we are part of the universe and connected electrically to the whole universe? It's not even possible. It's absolutely true, right? The energy that drives us comes from outside of us, not inside of us. And it leaves us when we die. And I got that, but I'm making the physical connection on what would make that possible, right? Get that? So patterns in electricity, those types of ideas, it's beyond me. It's beyond our science today. Is it possible? Yes. Any science... to measure what you just said, right. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it might be true. And any scientist, in my opinion, that says this can't be true is, there's a million times the scientists have said this can't be true. I'm going to use my mentor, Ray Kurzweil. The speed of the brain is 13 trillion MIPS. Nope. Wrong. Penrose pointed it out to him. It's wrong. And now it turned out it is wrong. Oh my God. So to say that we can definitively say that we're isolated within our bodies is a real stretch to me, because time doesn't work that way. Energy doesn't work that way. The universe doesn't work that way. We're all particles bound together, right? We're all one. Use the mic if you're going to talk. I know it's not about me.
It's about me.
There you go.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to... Excuse me?
Be nice.
Oh, wow. We're having a lover's tiff here online. Okay. I just want to confirm in terms of dolphins, how they communicate, because they're on separate bodies.
Wow, we're taking a lot of...
Yeah, wow, right. You're talking to the Rajman here.
I got it.
They communicate images. They don't communicate, and they communicate vibration. and then two separate bodies, right? So I'm wondering if they are hooking into some central
hard to tell.
consciousness,
so
right?
let me bring you guys up to speed on what Raj just said, because you said a bunch of
I'm
stuff.
going too far for this.
So there's not too far, just too fast. There's a theory on how dolphins communicate. It's a theory. We can't prove it because, well, we're not dolphins. So when you and I talk, we're visual creatures, right? So we live in a world of light. So we see each other. When dolphins communicate, they will live in a world of sound. So one of the theories is that dolphins project sound images, and all cetaceans. When they're talking to each other, those noises they make, they're projecting three-dimensional sound images to each other. Now, I want to get you to come into the dolphin world for a second and imagine that I'm not feeling well today. So I'm projecting, not consciously, subconsciously, through my sound clicks, a green aura around myself. It precludes the concept of, how are you feeling today? Right? Image type, sound image communication over long distances would be vastly effective in the ocean, where light doesn't move, but sound does, right? So when you think about how marine mammals are communicating, their entire basis of communication is fundamentally different than human consciousness, which means there's no way we could ever communicate them without some type of artificial intelligence translation machine that could translate between those two, probably with a lot of errors. So the question there is, they're connected to the universe the same way we are, right? We're all connected. Does that mean that they're completely different and separated from us? And the answer is probably not. I mean, it's a tough question. I don't believe in the future this separation will continue because it's in our way. Not just human to human, not human to AI, all creatures to all creatures. Get that? It's a much more inclusive whole world that I live in out in the future than I think most people think about. But that's just me. I could be wrong. Okay, we're getting near the end. Any last questions? Yes. Go, Hans, go. He's the sound guy. He's got his own mic.
So, the question is, so in the future, you think hearing like it's
it's on. That was awesome.
So it seems like the future is like a human and machine is going to become like one. It's going to be like cyborg type. Because when I think of it, like the way I live today, like I'm like dependent on my phone and my computer. Like I take notes on like every single thing.
Yeah.
And I do that for work. And like if someone tell me about say like a video edit, I take notes and then I go line one by one. But if I remember like everything, without looking at my notes, everything's in my brain, then I could move work a lot faster, and I'll be ahead. And
yep.
Other people,
which means it's inevitable.
Right.
Right.
And then say if one person is doing that, and then the other person is not, then they're not.
It's a divider.
They're not ahead. So
right.
Right. So everybody's just going to be doing that.
Well, not everybody. Right? Because everybody won't have access to that technology. Who is it? Nicholas Negroponte that said the problem with the future is it's not distributed evenly. So yes, there will be a cyborg moment for humans in the future, and it will be an economic and political and cultural and religious divider. People that are in the connection will have access to information, ideologies, and stuff, and other people not in the connection won't. Too bad for them, right? And it will be a source of economic advantage, like your iPhone is, or Android. Android, I apologize. I know it's very political. So today, devices divide us, right? They give us power. If you have better technology, you can potentially leverage that to your advantage. That will continue. That's just part of the deal, right? People have better access to medical technology, get to live longer, right? And on and on and on. The economic constructs that the human race has been built on for the last several thousand years are not going to change in the short order. But my hope is that cyborg moment, as you described it, will be very short, and that we will realize that the division of those will lead to terrible repercussions for those left out, because they will have no choice but to rise up. you'll be recreating a scenario that has occurred over and over and over, much like the situation in the Middle East that I focus on all the time because it's a good modern parable. We left them behind. And that sucks. Right there in the dark ages. Now they're not. And they don't like it. And they're fighting amongst themselves, trying to force their governments to let them into the future. But the governments don't want to let them into the future because they're not in the dark ages, but they're not in the future, right? They're somewhere in the middle. That time frame of technological separation between us needs to be short-lived. Otherwise, very bad things will happen. Understand? So, yeah, it'll happen. But I think that the bigger question you all should be focused on is biology, not technology. The way we move out of this isn't through those crude mechanical devices. It's through us becoming masters of biology. It's the biology part that matters. It's the biology part where we're behind, where we need computing and AI and all those modern things we're building to help us leap into the future. We know so little about our physical selves that it's impossible for us to make suppositions about what's right and wrong for the next step, right? Because we don't even know. We don't even know how we age. Think about how dumb that is. I mean, that's profoundly stupid. We don't know why we get sick. We don't know so much. But computers are helping us close that gap, right? Jump 100 years from now. Watch how fast we close that gap. And we start to become masters of biology. That will end that cyborg thing because we'll quickly realize, and our artificial intelligence brethren will help us understand, if you do this, here's the probability of the outcomes over the next 30 years, right? They can do that big math that we're not good at and show us the error before we make it. God, wouldn't that have been great if we had that in the past? Think of all the things, all the missteps we could have avoided if something could have told us based on the data that was observable. There's a 98% probability if you go this way, you're going to kill millions of people. Don't do it. It'd be so awesome. So, yeah. So I hope that we get there quickly and that we're able to move past. Does that make sense? And I got to wrap it up because we're like 1,000 minutes over. This is supposed to be like 20-minute segments. It's like a 3-hour segment. So we can continue in overtime, guys. But for the people on Facebook, I want to say thank you. And everyone, turn to the camera and say goodbye. Bye. Thanks for watching. Hopefully it was a good session. You guys are awesome. Thanks so much, everybody.